Hello, and welcome to another episode of Scavenger Life. This is episode number 296 at scavengerlife.com.
So since we started selling on eBay...
2008.
2008.
Yes.
I mean, you'd been selling much earlier with your mom back in the late 90s.
My account is from 1999.
Right. And I think you're like a lot of people... You know, you're like, I've been selling since 99, but really, you weren't really selling.
I mean, it was hobby selling.
You were using eBay.
Right. To buy and
sporadically.
Sell. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Not as a living.
But since we started to sell full-time in, around 2008 is when we started going hard on it, we have only misplaced 5 items. Where something sells, you go into your inventory, and you're like, I cannot find this. I've ripped it all apart. Only 5 times. Which is really a fraction of a percentage of the thousands of items we sold.
Yeah, we've sold thousands of items.
But this week, we could not find 2 items.
Right. So one thing, let me explain one thing. The first item, usually you can't find items when you've had them for a while. And you're like, I haven't seen this in a while, blah, blah, blah. The first item we couldn't find was listed just like 6 months ago.
Right.
So I'm like...
It was a set of, knives.
Steak knives, right? And there are a couple places we would put knives, right? I have a utensils box, which is mostly like spoons and serving things, chopsticks, things like that. But they could be there. And then it was, I have long chef knives in my office because they're kind of dangerous. So I have them in a cabinet. They just stay there. They weren't there either. And then we have flatware, sets of flatware, and that's in another spot. They weren't there either.
Right.
So we were just kind of like, we couldn't find them.
And then the other item was, what do you call it?
It's like a barometer and a temperature gauge.
It's a thing on the wall that gives you the
fancy
weather. I always think they're cool, but we just realized they don't sell very well. So this was an old item. We couldn't find it, and we were about to, do something about it, refund
them.
But we realized it had sold once before. It got returned, so it was actually in a box.
Yeah, so I had kept, because it was packed and bubble wrapped and stuff, we had kept it in a box. And we went to our shed and we were looking for it. And then I thought, you know what? Someone returned this once. I bet it's in a box, and I bet we wrote on the outside of the box. Sure enough, that was the case.
So we actually only lost 1 item, but it felt like almost 2.
Yeah.
But, and so when that happens is, we do what you have to do. We apologize.
Yeah.
We cancel, and we do a refund. And we also say, if you want anything else, we'll give you a percentage off of anything.
15% or whatever, just to...
And that person was fine, I think, it's really dangerous to have to cancel an item because you really make buyers mad. And I think one reason why buyers get mad and leave negative feedback is because a lot of people who sell and cancel items, they don't say anything. Like that's happened to me where I've bought some item and then suddenly I just get a message automatically from eBay. This
has been canceled.
It's been canceled.
Yeah.
I don't get any apology. I don't get any explanation, and it makes me upset because it's wasted my time.
Yeah, you got the price you want. You got the thing you want. You're waiting for it. You need it in this time, generally.
So
maybe.
I think that's why, we always try to, do personal messages. But it's like I said, I mean, that's now only 6 items out of the 20,000 items we've sold.
Right.
I mean, so it's really not a big deal.
It does stink, though.
But let's talk about this. And we've been talking about storage issues on the podcast and in our forum for the past 2 years or so because we're having a problem. So when we started, we had no idea how big our store would get. I had no conception,
Right.
We're starting off with, 300 or 400 items. And we would just shove them on shelves and laid across beds.
Laid across beds.
My dad had an outdoor shed.
Just dirty
that
shed.
We, made like a place to
hanger
hang clothes.
system, with ropes and poles.
That had tarps over them to but it's scrappy.
That was all we were we just have to hang this stuff up.
We're being scavengers. And that's really how our storage a system has evolved where just as we grow, we just figure it out.
Right.
And, the way we do it is we just put things in like categories.
Right.
So, clothes, we've done a good job. We actually have like a 30 by 25 foot room.
Oh, you have no idea how big this room is. It's like 18 by 24.
There you go. 18 by 24. Closed in.
It's closed.
Humidity controlled.
Yeah, temperature controlled, yeah.
So, and all of our clothes are hanging up, and that's not a problem. We don't really lose clothes, and shoes are in there too.
Right.
That's great. And so, everything's like all the jeans are here, and the coats, and ladies' coats. That's fine. Then the hard goods.
Yeah.
Which it was probably about 3 years into our selling where we started to realize, like, if you go to yard sales and auctions, there's all these cool hard goods.
Yeah.
So we went from being purely clothes people to selling a lot of hard goods.
Yeah.
And we just started to do plastic bins of like, okay, here's
some wood stuff.
Right. This is like smalls.
These are small metal.
Right. And, as we get a gathering of enough stuff, they just then have their own bin.
Like flatware this week.
Right.
We were like, because I went through the flatware, I'm looking for these knives. And I'm like, there's so much flatware here. And we just took a whole heap full of pictures of flatware. And Jay was like, flatware needs its own bins. So now it's going.
And that system has worked well for us until we hit about 4,000 items. And then we hit 4,000 items about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And that's when I really started feeling, and I still feel that way now, where something sells, 20% of the time I'm like, I have no idea where this could be.
It's not so much that you're like, I don't know where this could be. You're like, this has like 3 different places it could be. So I have to look in those 3 different possibilities,
Right. And that's a problem. I don't really like that feeling. And the other thing too is that, we have never let storage stop us.
Right.
I know there are some people who sell on eBay, and they're like, this is my storage, this extra bedroom.
Right.
Or my
this is it.
basement.
Yeah.
This is it. This is going to be the natural constraint for my store.
Right.
And that's fine. And I get that. For us, we're like, nothing will stop us. Like, if we want to buy more, we will buy more. We'll, and the way we do it is that we store a lot of stuff in like outdoor sheds.
Yeah.
Because we live in the country,
right.
And we just have these sheds, and we like, okay, that's going to become
this
storage.
Shed, yeah. I just want to mention though, part of the situation is it's fine to have sheds and you can organize sheds. 2 of our main sheds are on our rental property. So during the summer, it's really hard because you don't want to interrupt people and be like, every other night I have to come by and gather inventory. There have been times where someone's renting for a week and we either tell them we need to get something out of the shed or we change our handling time.
Everyone's fine with it.
Everyone's fine with it, but it's a pain.
Yeah, it's definitely a pain. But that's been our scrappy way where we haven't had to invest capital in buying sheds and all that stuff. And the other thing is with hard goods, it's one thing if we were just selling like a bunch of little tiny ashtrays or something.
Right.
So everything's an ashtray and you just organize those. I mean, the thing is we're selling large items like, a pot rack, a chandelier, lamps, glassware. It's stuff that just can't be thrown into a plastic bin.
Right.
So that's one problem we've been having is now we just have kind of these like random shelves. Like in our house, we even store stuff on our bookshelves that is really breakable. And also, I'm looking right now at this one shelf. It's just like the most random. Because that stuff can't be stored in an outdoor shed that has like bugs and weather.
Yeah. And can fall down or get cracked.
And so, it's getting a little overwhelming. So we now have 5,500 items in our inventory.
I feel it. Yeah. I can feel it.
So, I would, I'm always interested in how people store their stuff. I find that the people that have, larger stores, 4,000 or more, they're either all clothes.
Right.
Or there's someone like our friend who does like postcards, which that can get stored well.
And that's,
I would love to hear if anyone here has like a larger store, but also is doing, a mix or primarily like random hard good items that are odd shaped that can't fit in bins. You know?
And the sad thing is, like, you know, talk to my mom and stuff, and she's like, I don't want to do jackets or big bulky things anymore. Like, I just want to do. She wants to do like fabrics and skirts and ties, which is, she does great on those items. So it's smart of her to do that. But for me, it's like you said, I don't like to be held back because I do really well with like we sold a mug last night.
Hell
you know,
yeah.
We sell mugs, we sell, you know, shot glasses, we sell vases, we sell pitchers, you know, and we find that stuff and people want to get rid of it. And you're like, I could sell this, you know? So it's hard to just be like, I will not sell glassware. In the beginning, I was so against glassware. Of course, I pictured glassware just as like junky, you know, pressed glass. I'm not saying all pressed glass is junky, but I'm saying the stuff you see at the thrift stores like for miles. But then, you know, we kind of got into it where we're like, there's actually some really cool, interesting vintage. You know,
I mean, then
stuff.
you start to research it, and you're like, wait a
this
second.
is cool.
Like those bowls we sold 4 months ago or something.
Right.
A little
Limoges.
Yeah, a little
Dessert bowls. We
dessert
made like
bowls.
$200 on those.
We made $200.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
We made $200 on these little like porcelain bowls, and they just seemed like, you know.
Yeah, so I mean, I find like as you get better at scavenging and learn to as research and are interested in different things, you start realizing that this stuff is everywhere.
Right.
And you know, and a lot of hard goods are the things that people pass over because they don't want to ship them.
They don't want to
store them. They're like, I just want to sell scarves, you know, because it's really easy. I throw it in a polymer, and you know, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I find like for us, if we constrain ourselves that way, we would make much less you know, cash.
And I just think part of it too has to be like, you need to shop and buy and source things that are interesting to you, and that's always fluctuating and changing, and you can't just be like, oh, I love this thing, but I don't really want to ship it.
But
you know?
we are at a crossroads where, you know, so we've been selling 2008, so we're 8 years in here, you know, coming up on 10 years really. I mean, like, we're in our
it's
9th year.
crazy.
And we've never really had to invest a lot of capital.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Because we've just found little storage areas that were free to us.
Yeah.
For the most part. Now we're actually thinking about building an actual, like, warehouse. You know?
It's really funny because our helper was over, and I think I was talking about something that I was packing, and I think, I told her that we couldn't find the barometer, and I was like, we finally found it and stuff, and then we were talking about storage, and I'm like, that's why we're building this building out back. She's like, it's kind of like your own little personal warehouse. I'm like, that is exactly what it is.
And so it reminded me, we've been talking about this. We already poured the base, the concrete slab. It's
beautiful.
Which was actually much more work than we thought because I was like, oh, it's flat over there. Like,
it's
no,
not flat.
The guy had to like bring a big bulldozer and like raise on one side up
like 4 feet.
So he had to move all this earth.
Which is a lot.
But it looks beautiful. I mean, we could build a house there.
We walked over there yesterday. We took a walk around the neighborhood, and we walked, you know, through that area, and we were like, this is awesome.
And so the size is going to be how big? Tell me.
It is 41 by 24.
Right.
Basically 40 by 24.
And then
it's huge.
And then we want to go 2 stories.
Because we're annoying like that.
So, I mean, again, we've talked about it, but that's where the crossroads is. So after we finish renovating our rental, that's where we want to put our money. But it's really going to be like $50,000.
I mean,
and that's a real crossroads because this is the first time, like, you know, we have to really be committed to this. To number one, just being scavengers and selling on eBay. Number two, you know, being committed to selling the kind of stuff we do where we need this kind of storage. And, you know, because it's going to take a handful of years to make the money back to pay off this building.
Right.
So
the great thing about the building, too, is if for some reason, I don't see this happening anytime soon, we were like, we're not going to do eBay anymore. You could use it for so many other things. And we have storage for building materials. We've always needed storage for stuff like that. Linens for the rental houses is like overtaking my laundry room. I'm like, oh my God. Stuff like that where you're like, there are other reasons you can use these spaces.
We could also turn it into basically a house.
You can turn it into a house.
Because it's on a separate piece of land behind our land.
It's in a different lot.
Right.
Yeah.
So we could turn it into a house.
Yep. And rent it. Can we do a long-term rental? We could do long-term rental.
You could definitely do a long-term rental or sell it,
Or sell it.
Or when we sell, we have no a reason to leave where we live, but if we ever had to, it's only improving the value of our home.
Yeah, I think so.
Especially around here. Guys would love to have a 2-story storage building that they could store cars in there.
Which is so funny because we have another 2-story storage building. Well, it's storage and it's an office / apartment. So you're like, yeah. It gets a little crazy with buildings.
But and I guess I only talk about it because it just seems so crazy when we started to sell on eBay. And I'm sure there are people like that now out there. They're selling, a side income.
Yeah.
The word I hate the most. The side hustle. It's not a hustle. It's like a business. So you're making some extra cash, and that's basically what we were doing.
Yeah.
And now we're at the point where we're actually gonna invest $50,000 in a building. Yeah, that's insane to me.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, so we always love to hear how people do storage, and our thinking is after we build this thing, and this is going to be a future project. Yeah, we'll change up our storage system too. And people on its forum have talked about how they have SKUs and they have numbers. Do it more like Amazon style, where just everything. You just have bins, but it can be mixed in with all kinds of different stuff. Yeah. No longer are things in like boxes.
Well, it's almost like everything you did the last week goes in this bin. Right. And it's bin number, whatever.
And keep its location on its listing.
Right. Right. Exactly.
And that makes sense too, because then when you go to a bin, instead of having like 18 blue hats and you're trying to find a blue hat, you go into a bin and there'll probably only be one blue hat along with candlesticks and pots and everything else.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So let's talk about our eBay business this past week. One thing Ryan did was you ended our free shipping experiment.
Yeah, we had free shipping on like hats, shirts, dresses, just a few categories.
But it was about 1,200 items.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I just felt like people were buying stuff and they were not buying more than normal. And then I turned that off, and shirts, hats, even dresses, which I don't sell very often, we're selling just
right. Fine. And let's just be clear. This isn't a feeling. There are actual facts. Our numbers did not go up. Yeah. We didn't start to sell more of anything because it had free.
Yeah, I wasn't like, wow, that helped.
We were basically just losing a couple $dollars on each item. Exactly. And so it just doesn't seem it's worth it to us.
It didn't seem worth it, and I just felt like, when we've talked about this forever, we're not selling commodity items. Right. I'm competing with other people, but not by much. I'm just like, if this is the right size, right, thing.
Well, I think that's the thing that I always find amusing is when people come on the forum and they're like, you have to do free shipping because that's what eBay wants you to do. And even if you don't sell more, it brings you up and the search is ranking. And then when I do experiment, it's like this and bring some proof to the table. And then they're like, but it only works for if you're selling commodity items like iPhone cases or like individual items. And I'm like, okay.
Okay, well, that doesn't make sense for us.
Anyway, that's something, we like to do experiments. We tried it. If it worked, I would have kept at it. But it didn't work for us.
I just didn't want to do it anymore.
So something you and our helper were doing this week mainly were buttons.
Yes. So we talked about how we went to the auction. We bought an entire table top and underneath for $50. And there were these 2 bins of buttons. They were well organized, thank God, by color and type. And so I went through them and I made them into the sets or lots that I wanted. And there's some designer buttons that I'm selling one by one. I sold one single button. It was a Chanel button yesterday for $40.
It sold the same day, right?
It sold last night.
Yeah.
It sold overnight.
Right.
So that one button basically paid for the entire table, just about.
Now, so we've never really sold these before.
Yeah.
In your research,
yes,
do buttons sell well? Like, who's buying them? Why?
Yeah, so the reason I even thought that it was something was a couple things. So my mom used to sew stuff by hand when we were little. And so you want I want these little heart-shaped, red buttons and so you have to look for that stuff. You can buy it at Joann Fabrics or wherever, but At Michael's. But these are vintage. Some are most are vintage. Some are natural mother of pearl, so those are worth more. Some are antler. A lot are plastic, but a lot of them are super Art Deco, mid-century. Some of them are moon glow. I mean, they're things that you can buy them now, but they're not going to look like that,
right,
or they're not going to be of the quality, or they're not genuine vintage, or like I said, there were a bunch of genuine Chanel. There's a bunch of Ferragamo buttons.
Burberry.
There's some Burberry.
I mean, there's a tiny, small amount compared
to everything else. I decided the more generic plastic ones, I put in huge lots. These are just, you can buy them at Michael's. Let's just do a huge lot. But then I picked out the really Art Deco special ones.
Right, I'm looking here, and you might have two of them that might sell for $15, or
right,
8 that sell for $24,
right,
5 that sell for $40.
But we have 200 of those or more listings.
So when I look here, I see that you're selling 2 for $15 or 4 for $30. I mean,
yeah.
That's pretty incredible. So people pay those kind of prices for
yeah. They if you have a very specific button, a very specific look that is genuine vintage, from what I could see, yes, people would pay those prices. Awesome. I'm not 100% certain.
No.
The beautiful thing now is, and I've been seeing this a lot, even with stuff that doesn't have best offer, people will say, I'll give you $20 for this. You just send them an offer through the message. That's been happening a lot lately.
Right.
So I'm not really worried. I'm
right,
if someone is a crafter or a fashion person
right,
who makes their own clothes and they see this and they're I want that button,
right,
I'm gonna pay $20.
I guess it's kind of like with those old pens and markers,
right,
that I've found. You just have a gut feeling that people buy this kind of stuff, and you price it the best you can,
right,
and see what happens.
And I can always go back and be okay, maybe
right,
this one isn't that popular. Let's bring the price down or do a markdown or something. And I'm not the kind of person to do that. But
I'm not questioning you. I'm just wanting to share with people out there your process of how you learn something new and how you make these choices. Because
right,
we have people come on the forum and they're like, can you tell me what this is? Okay, now how much do I price it for? It's just all right, people. It's
do the work.
You just have to do the research, and then you just have to make a business decision of, I'm willing to hold on to it for a good price, or I'm just trying to dump it and I'm just doing fire sales.
So the other reason too is that I knew that people would buy buttons is I in the past have bought buttons myself, where I have this one coat that I wear during the winter time. It's this vintage wool coat, and it had these buttons that I thought were really ugly. They were bright brass or something. They had been added later and they didn't look right. So I bought these other vintage olive green ones and replaced all of them. So I needed a specific, I need a specific size, I want a specific color, and I want it to look vintage. So I searched eBay and found some, I paid $15 for 30 of them.
Wow.
But I sold the rest. I used 8 and then sold the rest. But yeah, so I know that, I've been a person to need a specific button, and so I knew that that is a market.
And, so this is kind of goes back to the podcast we did a couple of weeks ago where we talked about caches.
Right, it's a cache. That is definitely
C-A-C-H-E,
C-A-C-H. HE, yes.
And our other term that we like is a pipeline.
It's definitely a pipeline.
So we're turning a cache into a pipeline.
Yes.
I feel like we could write, it's one of those like how to make $1 million books where they have all that like technical, like those like buzzwords. Yeah, but so, we paid whatever, let's say $10.
Yeah.
It's for those. And the good news is we could not have done this as quickly as we did. In 1 week, we had them all up, and that's because we had a helper. And we probably paid her about $120 to photograph and list them. So we're, let's say we're $130 invested.
Right.
I bet we'll make about, $2,000?
I hope. Over time.
Over time. And that's the thing. It's just like with my old pens. It's just you list them, and then just over time, it's $20 here, $30 there, $10. And it's just a little tiny, here's a phone bill. Here's it fills up our car for a week,
Right.
That's what I like about it. So another kind of eBay event this week, we talked about it a week ago, was I have changed my procedure in the eBay business.
Right.
I was just taking photos and writing descriptions and titles and measuring in Google Docs, and then you would actually put them up.
Right.
Actually, our helper taught me what she does, and now I'm just taking photos with the phone directly in the eBay app.
You have an iPhone 5, so you have a great camera.
And then I get on the computer and I go through those scheduled...
Right, you make a draft.
Right.
And then you make it a scheduled listing, and because the funny thing is, you were doing all the work already.
Right.
It just wasn't in eBay. It was on a Google Doc.
Well, I will say the old way of doing it was much cleaner for me, because I'm just
right there,
inputting some info, and then you would figure out where to go. I did find, and it's not a big deal, I need to just be a better person. Then you open up the listing, and there's eBay just has so many fields. Yeah. And it's just do I have to put this? What's this? An MFC code? I don't even know whatever it is. I mean,
usually for our stuff, you don't have to put that stuff.
And so I'm going through and doing it, and then I would research and price it.
Now, what was great is when I opened up your scheduleds, I was like, he already priced these. Right. You should have just listed them.
I don't trust myself. I want you to be the final.
You already priced it. I mean, there were a couple where I bumped it up $5, where I'm like, nah, I think we could get $29 for this. But you already did it all.
I will say that when I was researching and pricing, I mean, I am not as brave as you are. I mean, and I wonder, are you pricing high purely based on instinct? Because when I'm doing it's research and I see solds, I mean, I'm pricing at the higher end, but I know these are items where you normally price even higher than that.
But so here's the problem: the stuff you were doing this first round, it was 9 items. It was Revereware pots and a couple kitchen knives and stuff. I'm not pricing that stuff very high anymore. Right. I used to when it was a real vintage Revereware. Okay, there's a million of those. There are a million of those.
Everyone heard the Bolo and now and people sell that stuff so cheap.
Yeah. I'm no, unless it's pristine, gorgeous, never used. But so those types of items, no, not really anymore. So that's not a great example. Maybe I see a row of fancy shoes and some brass candlesticks and stuff like that. You might. So when you're pricing and you're researching, or me, not you, me.
But I'm going to be doing that now.
But when you are, I mean, I'm, as we always say, taking into consideration, are there 500 of these listed? Or are there 3? And I have the nicest ones. Or mine aren't as nice as those ones, let's price in between. Or I kind of want to get rid of this fast, so I'm going to do a good deal and whatever. So it's all these factors. And I kept all of your prices except one where I was I think we could do a little better on this.
Well, I mean, I do a lot of research anyway, just as we're finding stuff.
Right.
Because I'm just trying to learn about things.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew this already, but this really brought home. God, people just sell stuff so cheap.
So
I'm just
cheap.
like, what?
They're like $3.99. I'm like,
with free shipping,
I'm
it's
like, how you lost money on this?
right.
Like,
And I really think it's just because, and I guess that's what the market is. People aren't willing to hold on to things. So if something doesn't sell, it's within a month.
Yeah, they want it gone.
They're like, okay, half off.
Yeah.
If it doesn't sell a month after that, half off.
Right.
They're just like, dump it. Like, let's go. And, and this goes back to our discussion about storage.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole reason why we're going to be willing to spend $50,000 on a storage building is because if we hold on to it, we'll make more money.
Right.
And
the idea is, like with the buttons, stuff sells every day. Okay, I maybe had, a couple of those items for like a while, but it might sell tomorrow. It did sell yesterday, so that's just how it works for us. But I will say, with your new way of doing things, your photos look great. The titles were great.
Wow.
The prices were great.
Yeah.
I mean, and the only thing I needed was I needed to make sure you had the weight correct, because some of those knives you didn't change to like first class.
There's too much stuff. No,
but
you're right.
You know this stuff. Like, it's not, you weighed it. It's like you weighed it. It weighs 2 pounds. Okay, It goes FedEx Smart Post.
Yep.
Like, what more?
No,
1 to 2
right.
pounds.
You're
Like,
right.
it doesn't.
You're right.
So, I mean, I listed, you had 9 things. I listed them in like, it was like 1 a minute. It was just like, yep, done. And now, I mean, from the old ways, I have like folders sitting there that I don't have time to do. I'm just like,
you have time.
I gotta make time. I barely have time, but yeah, okay.
I would like to get all those done before as we leave in April. Is that possible?
Stop putting stuff up for me to list then. It's like, I have a helper that's doing like how many things a day every day that I'm trying to get up. So it's like, when do I have time to put those up? Plus I have to do our taxes. It's like, what? Okay, I don't do our taxes, that's true. But I have to get that ready.
Can a woman have it all?
I'm not asking for it all.
Okay, let's talk about the scavenge of the week.
Oh God.
How did you enjoy this segment?
Oh, I like it, but it's just funny that you have to make it like this segment.
We actually didn't scavenge a whole lot. I stopped by 2 thrift stores on my way to Lowe's to pick up wood.
Yeah, as you do
a
almost
construction
every
place.
Day.
Do people know about what
Lowe's?
Lowe's is that a nationwide?
Well, here's the thing. Like, I grew up in Massachusetts, and we had this thing called home quarters. And it was basically Home Depot. But Home Depot didn't exist then. And, like, so when I was in college, I only heard of Home Depot because there was, like, one in Boston. And I think Lowe's was just, like, part of a different part of the country, but now it's everywhere. Because when we lived in California, there was one in San Mateo. So I was like, okay.
Well, I told you growing up in Houston, and I don't know if anyone is from Texas knows this, but there was a place called Handy Dandy.
No, it was Handy Dan.
I think, is it?
It was Handy Dan's.
Handy
Dandy is even cooler
Handy
name.
Dan's. That was in Houston. That's where my dad and I.
Because you call it that sometimes, and I'm like, what are
Handy
you
Dan.
You're like, I gotta go to Handy. Well, see, that's like my childhood comes in where I'm like, I gotta go to HQ.
Right.
And it's like, what's that? Oh, it's the home quarters.
People don't care. Okay, so anyway, I stopped by 2 thrift stores just on the way, as scavengers do. And I stopped in one, and I picked up, 6, 8 items for, I think it was like $30 or something.
Yeah.
Because I got some nice stuff.
Yeah.
And the scavenge of the week is I got a vintage LA it's Raiders like game day jacket made in the USA.
Starter.
Right.
Made in the USA. Fully reversible. One side's silver, one side's black.
Like from the 80s.
From the 80s.
And Ryan, I don't want to give you credit here, okay?
Thank you. Yes, I would love to take credit.
This is why I like working it with you.
Yeah.
Is that I bring it home, I knew it was cool. But you were like, this is really cool. You enlisted it right away, and you put it up for like $500.
Yes, I did.
And 3 people are watching it.
Yes, I did.
So
it has best offer.
So we'll probably get a best offer, and maybe we'll sell it for like $300. I would never see. Just my instinct, it would have been like, oh, I'll make $100 on this. You know? So good for you.
Okay, so you want to know the reasoning behind that? just look at completed. Vintage starter, USA made, whatever.
Yep.
They sell for so much money because these football people and their stuff.
Football dudes.
Yeah, there's like some game tomorrow.
Yeah.
Some football game tomorrow.
Sports ball game.
Sports ball,
yeah. So anyway, that was our Scavenger.
Yes, that was a great find.
Yeah. And
the minute you brought it in the house, I was like, no one else touched this. Give this to me. I'm listing it right now.
I also found I guess it's a vintage right now, but an Apple eyesight camera. Like before cameras had before
laptops had cameras in them.
Cameras automatically. This is probably in the late 90s.
Like 10 years. I want to say 10-ish years ago they started.
Like Apple had this one. It's so cool. It has like a barrel.
It would mount on
it's
your
a webcam.
laptop. Yeah, it's a webcam.
But I found one new
sealed in the box.
So
that was a great find. But you paid.
I paid $15 for it. But when I was in the store, I saw they sell for at least $100.
Yeah.
If not more. So, you know, I'm trying to do this thing where I'm willing to invest more, hoping that it will sell quickly. And
so, I will, we will get that up, and that's a nice find.
Okay, a couple random things before we talk about our numbers.
Yes, I will talk about this. So, I had someone email me who wanted to download all the podcasts. We do have a little link up at the top where we have almost so this is 296 right now that we're on. I mean, that's almost 300 podcasts. So, yeah, iTunes doesn't archive all of them. They're all for free on our page and our YouTube. But we do have a download all page where you can pay us a little bit and you can download every single podcast.
And that's mainly because there was one week where you had to organize them all to turn them into these little packages. And that's just for people who like the podcast.
Want to listen to them.
Want to have to click on, each page or whatever.
And if you want to put them all on your iPod, basically, all in a row. Yes, so I organized them. I made sure they were all labeled correctly, and I still have to update them. So every time we have a new batch of like 20 episodes, I have to package them and put them up there.
So what had been wrong? The link was just broken?
So when we changed from Blogger to WordPress, that code got garbled, and I had to I thought I had fixed it. Apparently I hadn't. Someone emailed us, I'm trying to get this. And so I have fixed that link. Cool. So if there's anyone interested in doing the download all, it's fixed.
Okay, and a couple other things that I was thinking about, because I like to think about
this is hilarious.
We haven't bought a bar of soap in probably 8 to 10 years. And it's not because we aren't clean people, but it's just one of those things as scavengers. When we're out there scavenging, we buy bags of soap.
You always see it at the thrift store.
Thrift stores, at yard sales.
So technically, we have bought soap.
Yeah.
Just not at a regular store where you buy it at Walmart.
We even bought it new. And actually, I remember we were in Walmart the other day, and
you looked at the prices.
And I'm just like, people pay like $1 plus for a single bar of soap. I'm like, we buy a whole bag of soap for $1. And the great thing about soap is it doesn't go bad. We have soap from like the 50s.
And you're like, I'm using this in the bathroom.
It's fine. It's great. And actually a bunch of it are like little smaller, like old hotel soaps.
Yeah. Now I will sell old hotel soaps if they are a high-end brand or if they have like really awesome labels.
Like come from a hotel that got torn down, like a Vegas hotel that got torn down.
Right. So I would sell, but like there's so we live in a place where people go on vacation, obviously, since we have a vacation rental. But there's like a couple, like there's a Best Western, there's a Days Inn, like on the outside of town. And when they get new supplies, like they change the brand of their supplies, they donate it all to our thrift stores. And they'll just have bags and bags of soap.
We probably have 4 years of soap in our closet.
I even make detergent out of that soap. Because there's ways to combine it with other, like borax, and you crush up the soap bars. That's how crazy I am.
Just Google it.
Yeah.
It's not crazy. We also haven't bought a new pair of shoes in 10 years.
Oh, yeah. I think more than that for me.
I mean, I don't think that's so much of a big deal. I'm sure a lot of people
or
like
new
that.
Clothes. I can't remember the last time I've ever bought new clothes.
I mean, the last pair of shoes we bought new was one when we first met. It was like the first...
Yes.
a year or so, and
Yes.
you took me to a store, and then you bought me like a pair of like hemp shoes, and they
Oh,
were
it was
cool,
for a
like
present. Yeah, I got you like
skater hemp shoes, and they were cool, but they fell apart pretty quickly.
Well, they fall apart because that's the great thing about getting used shoes. They're already a little rough, so you're not afraid of getting them dirty. And then once they start like really getting bad, you're like, I only paid
Yeah.
$1 for them, you know.
And so we now have too many shoes.
Too
It's
many
like by the
shoes.
back of our
Way too
door.
many.
I'm sure it's like a lot of people.
I need to get rid of some of them. Like, I have enough work shoes that I just really only.
I
need
like
one pair.
every pair I have because they're all good for certain things. Like this is for like
Right.
different events.
Like, these are work shoes.
Yeah.
These are good for going over to the construction project.
See,
these
it's
are
like
good
my
for when I
favorite-
have a meeting.
And my favorite, most comfortable pair of shoes I can't wear in the rain because they have like holes on the bottom, so water gets in there. But
But on a
they're-
normal day,
they're fine.
work day, it's fine, right? Yeah.
So let's talk about our numbers, our eBay business here. Okay, so in our main store, we made about $1,700.
Not bad.
In our second eBay store, we made about $200. And I say about just because
Yeah.
it's not the end of the week yet. We still have all day on Saturday here, so we'll
Yeah.
probably make a bit more. But so that's not bad. Not as much as we did a week ago. And there were definitely days where it felt a little slower.
Yeah.
But every day seemed to kind of end with a bang, so that was good.
Yeah.
Okay, things we sold. We sold that it's button. It's like you talked about
Chanel
for
button. Woo,
$40.
woo. Yeah, so the thing that I just remembered about the buttons is I'm pretty sure the buttons that are going to sell first are the designer buttons.
Right.
Those are going to go. And then, like we said, it's going to be a pipeline from there.
Yeah. Then we woke up to a nice sale where we sold a rug.
Yeah, it's a rug. It's like a 2x3 rug.
And we sold it for $135.
Yeah, we sold it for $135. I took an offer.
Yep.
It was at like 2 a.m. because
Yep.
I was awake randomly. And they paid. And I shipped it.
And this was probably 6 months ago. We were at a thrift store, and they had cleaned out somebody's house. And right in front of the cash register, they had all these carpet rugs,
Little rugs.
on the floor where people were like
Filthy.
walking on them.
And they were used anyway. They were just
But
dirty.
most of them were wool, so we like grabbed them all and paid $3 to $5 each.
Right.
And so we just washed them in the washer.
I washed some of them, and then the other ones, I just... Here's a cool trick, just real quick, about rugs. If you flip them over... Like, this is outside. Like, if you have a porch, an outdoor porch, you could do this in your house, but it get kind of nasty. So we have a huge deck on the back of our house. It's ridiculously way too big. And so we flip the rug over, vacuum the back, and the movement of that gets the dirt from the front to fall out. So then you flip it over, vacuum your deck so it's not full of dust and dirt, and then vacuum the other side. And I have found that is very helpful in getting a lot of like excess dust and dirt out, and sand and things like that.
And then if it's small enough, you can just put it in the
Yeah,
washer.
if it's a flat weave, like small
on delicate, or that what you...
Yeah, so what I do is if it's got a heavy duty backing, you probably can't wash it. But if it's a flat weave, like thin, it almost feels like a blanket. It's like a tapestry type thing. If you put it in the washer on all cold, on hand washable, with just a little bit of detergent, that should do it. And then hang it. Don't put it in the dryer or anything. And wool is fine with cold wash like that on delicate.
We sold a pair of inline skates or
rollerblades.
Rollerblades, and this is just one of those random things. We're at like a church thrift store where they were just trying to clean the place out.
Yeah.
They were like, just put stuff in bags, and I found just, they were nice. They were in a case.
Yeah, they looked like
and
they'd hardly been used.
They look nice. I'm just like, does anyone do skating anymore like
yeah, I
this?
think people
But,
do.
We probably had them 6 months up. Someone gave us an offer
Of $70.
and we were like,
I
let's
had them
do
up
it.
for 100 something, because some of them, if they're like beautiful, nice high-end brand, will sell for that, but I was happy with 70.
Yeah.
Okay, so something else we sold was we bought a cardboard cutout of Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek The Next Generation.
USS Enterprise.
My favorite show of all time.
Yeah.
Like, my iPhone has, like, basically a tricorder, like, background.
And it's interesting, like, if someone were to meet you, they wouldn't really know that. I think it's interesting thing about you that
I'm not one of those people that's, like I have to go to conventions or stuff like that.
If you don't learn, like, it's Klingon or whatever.
Yeah, like, I don't... And I'm not, like, in episode 75, like, I'm not like that, but I'm like... It was a great show.
Right.
And I love Captain Picard. And I love all the characters.
And I think it's really heartwarming, the story of when you would come home from school and you and your sister and brother would watch it. And there would be like back-to-back episodes.
Yeah, so
you guys would eat dinner.
Before? So in Boston, back when I was in high school, the Boston station would play Star Trek: The Next Generation because it was in syndication. It was on Saturdays new, but it was in syndication also. So the Boston station would play it from 6 to 7, but then the Rhode Island station would play it from 7 to 8. Different episodes. So you'd sit down for dinner. Everyone sit down for dinner. And we'd watch the first
show. Yeah.
And then you'd watch the other one on the other station. So it was like, that's what you did, at dinner time. And we would all... We had a 13-inch television. Wow. That's what we watched it on because we ate dinner like in front of that.
So we actually bought this from an online auction.
It was $10.
It was like a 6-foot tall cardboard cutout of Jean-Luc Picard.
He was 6'3".
I think just when they put out a movie or something like that, it was like a movie advertisement, but it was
something
cool.
Like that,
it folded up. I saw it first.
You saw it.
I was like, let's bid on it. We bought it for 10. We sold it for 100. It's great, and it sold. Like, it's within a week.
I will tell you why it sold for 100 because it was the only Picard online. There's like if you go on eBay and you're like Star Trek cardboard cutouts, there's some like Dr. Spock and there's some like William Shatner ones or whatever, and there's some Deep Space Nine. None from Next Generation. I'm like, so Captain Picard, hello.
Yeah, why didn't you price it like $500?
Because I was like, there were some, like, if you go on Google Shopping, you could get some places, but they were in the UK.
Gotcha.
And I was like, let's just do $100.
But, I mean, this is an example of storage issues.
Yes.
With a cardboard, even though it folds in half, it's still big and bulky, and it's delicate. We can't just shove that into, like, an old farm shed.
Yeah.
And so it actually has to like live in our house. So we actually have stuff like kind of
corners,
in corners, and that's where it went. So it's good.
So it's good. We got it out.
We also sold some kind of like a keyboard for $110, and it's just a lot of stuff we found at a thrift store. We sold a pedal.
Oh, it was a guitar distortion pedal thing.
And, we've talked about this before. We'll often come across these weird electronics that we can't test.
Yeah.
And so we, tell people untested, but we'll take it back if it doesn't work. And normally it does work. Yeah. But this is some weird... Did you even know what it was?
Well, they sell them new. Like, the company has, like, updated versions of these. And what I think it is, it's just a generic programmable USB thing with, like, buttons on it. So, from what it looked like to me, someone had programmed it to do, like, karaoke. Like, karaoke songs or something. But it looked like you could have done it for, like, video switching. Like... I think it's one of those things where, like, you plug it into certain software and you're like, okay, when I press this button... Maybe it's
for, like, a light board or something.
It could have been something... Like, they're that's why they call them programmable.
I bet this big cache of stuff we got was, like, from a church or something.
It was something like that,
And they're doing, like, a light show and music pedals and, that kind of stuff.
So, the great thing is those are still worth a lot of money, even though it's... It was probably like 10 years old, 8 to 10 years old, but they still are worth a lot of money. So that sold for, what was it? $110.
Yep.
That was an offer. So
we also sold a cast iron, like a wrought iron chandelier for $180.
Yeah, so it wasn't cast iron; it was wrought iron, which is different.
It's different.
Cast iron is like, if you think of cast metal, what that looks like, that's very different than wrought iron, which is like
wrought.
You like made something out of iron. You didn't just put it in a mold.
Okay.
And cast iron is a lot heavier.
I just learned something.
But it wasn't... I think that this was, wrought iron in quotes. Like, someone didn't hand make this thing. It was, like, something you would buy at like Sears, 40 years ago or something like that. But anyway, it was a wrought iron look, and it was made out of iron. This thing sucked to pack. I will tell you, it sucked to pack because it was 24 inches tall by 24 inches wide.
I mean,
there are no boxes for that.
I'm going to give you some credit here too. One reason we're successful in our business is because you personally are willing to ship anything. Like, if I had to ship that, it would not be happening.
Yeah.
But you're willing to ship it.
Well, the reason I was willing to ship that is I wanted to recoup some costs from the house, like closing costs. We got it out of the house that we're renovating.
Right.
I don't know if we mentioned that.
Right. We saved stuff because people just sold us a house with everything
furnished,
in it.
Yeah.
We threw away like 75% of it. But we're making some.
Yeah,
cash.
We're making some money back. So
artwork and antlers and.
Yeah. So we pulled that off. It was filthy. It was disgusting. We had to clean it, but I was able to, number one, sell it for best offer, $180, and I was able to pack it, and it got delivered today. So I'm hoping we don't hear anything.
All right, and the last thing about stuff we sold. So we sold 44 items in our main store. 17 of those were either shoes, shirts, jackets, or belts. Just bread and butter stuff. So almost half of what we sold was, again, just our continuously bread and butter items, Right. And so I just always bring that up because I think it's good to remember. It's fun talking about the cool Jean-Luc Picard stuff because that's the thing that keeps us interested in scavenging
it's fun.
And selling. But I mean, really, still a significant portion of our income is just from like
some
pair
jeans,
of Levi's jeans,
right,
some jacket,
But I will say this, I'm not buying clothes that aren't interesting to me. Right. I buy clothes where I'm like Levi's. Right. Levi's is a great brand. Yeah. Or these pair of vintage jeans that have the tags on them. That's interesting to me.
J. Jill.
Yeah, J. Jill. I only buy J. Jill if it's like linen.
J. Jill.
I don't know. Why are you making fun of J. Jill? It's like making fun of Land's End. Like, we buy so much Land's End stuff.
I just think that there are these clothing brands where you look at it and it just looks really generic.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, people pay how much
so much
for this
money
new
for that stuff.
Coldwater Creek? Like, it's just
Chico's.
Kind of generic and inexpensively made, but it's so expensive.
So much,
and so I don't really understand what the value proposition is for pieces of clothes like that. At least when you buy something like Patagonia, it's like it's fairly well made. Right. It's like rugged.
I don't know, but Patagonia, that stuff is like made overseas. It's not made. It's made by those same places now. At least if you find the vintage ones, like if you find vintage Patagonia, vintage Columbia, vintage like Land's End, that stuff was made in the USA. It was made here. That's why I look for that stuff, but some of it sells for a lot of money still.
I don't quite agree. I feel like some of the Patagonia still is, even though it might be made in China, is still well made.
You are a convert because now every pair of pants you own is like Patagonia.
And they all look alike.
They're like all beige.
A uniform. I have a uniform that I love.
No, those are nice pants,
Okay.
Okay, customer issues. So this was an issue. We had 2 very high-priced items sell that the people changed their minds.
Right, high price like $300 or $400.
Yeah, so one was $300 and one was $250, I think.
And each of these buyers gave us an offer. We agreed and accepted.
Yes.
And then once we accepted their offer, then they come asking all these questions.
Right.
And they each found a reason why they didn't want the item.
Right.
And it's very confusing because all the information had been there. And if they were confused about something, they should ask
before they give
And so we had to cancel both items, and it's just it was just
like that's $500 worth of
people
sales.
know what this feels like when you think that money's in the bank.
You're like, what a great sale!
And then it just it falls apart, and it's just strange. It happened for 2 things. One was like a flusher for a toilet,
an electronic fancy flusher,
and then the other one was
an vintage electric sewing machine from the early 1900s, and it works perfectly, and it's beautiful.
You even had a video. That showed
this person, it just kills me.
Yeah.
I had a video. I said everything, the beautiful photos, video, all information. Is this electric? Does it work? After she gave us the offer, I'm like, yeah. It says it in the listing.
I think what it is really...
I think they had zero feedback.
It's, a bit of a higher price item. It's not just like buying a pair of jeans.
Yeah.
I think it's just people put the offer in, are kind of amazed we accepted it.
Right.
And then they're like, ooh, buyer's
wait, what do
remorse.
it's buyer's remorse.
They're just like, wait a second. Do I really want to spend that much
Absolutely.
money?
And then they don't want to just say that. Yeah. They have to come up with some excuse.
But whatever.
Okay, so this other customer issue, I was the customer.
Right.
So I bought a lot of 100 poly mailers. Most of the poly mailers I have are eBay shipping supplies, but the bigger one, they're the 19 by 24. I use them all the time. eBay doesn't sell those. I wish they did. They don't.
Okay.
The biggest one they have is like the size under that. So I need these. So I ordered them, best price, free shipping.
Off some guy on eBay.
Off another seller on eBay. Fine, they get here. I look at the box. This box is heavy. They paid for a first class 4-ounce box. 4 ounce, right now, 4 ounces is the lowest you can get. It's like $2.61. I was so pissed. I was like, that is so cheating on the post office.
Because the box weighed 8 pounds. Right.
So I was like, at first I was like, it's probably like 3 pounds. I put it on the scale, it's 8 pounds.
So this is what we figure out, and this is a seller that sells, hundreds of things. Just sells like commodity items.
Hundreds of things a week.
It's like he's got, like over 100,000 feedback.
Right.
It's one of those guys.
Yeah.
So it's kind of smart in a diabolical way.
Right.
He knows that if he just, abuses it, maybe 10% might get caught.
Right.
But the rest will go through. So he's saving buku bucks.
So much money.
And then he's willing to eat any kind of issue that happens because he's selling enough stuff.
Because enough gets through that he doesn't have an issue.
Because he did have some negative feedback where people were like, the post office charged me more money.
They delivered at postage due, so they won't give it to you until you pay or refuse it. Basically.
And so he must sell enough where he can eat that. And he's smart too because he uses a stamps.com account.
Right.
And he drops it all off at a local UPS store.
So his return address is, it's not even a P.O. box.
Right.
It's a UPS store.
So it's smart. So he probably pulls up there, unloads it, and then it gets mixed in with everybody else's stuff.
From the UPS store.
So the post office person who picks it up and scans it can't really focus on any one person's stuff. They have so much stuff.
It's the volume.
It's really smart. So what'd you do, Ryan?
So it's smart, like you said, in a diabolical way, but it's really crappy. It's crappy for customers who have to deal with postage due. I didn't have to deal with that. And it's crappy for the post office. That's not fair. So what I did was I looked up the address, the return address, because I wanted to see what kind of warehouse it was coming from. And I found out it's a UPS store. I looked up the closest post office in that zip code of who's picking it up. It's like literally a block away, which makes sense. So I called that post office and I was like, there's a customer at this address, which is a UPS store down the street from you guys, who is like grossly abusing the first class label. And so they transferred me to the manager of that store, the post office. And I just basically filed a complaint. And I was like, this is a return address. This is the name of the business. It's coming from that UPS store. You guys should look into it because, they paid for a first class. It was an 8-pound box. The guy seemed super confused. He's like, do you get lots of boxes from this person? I'm like, no, I got one box. But obviously they're abusing the system. And he was like, oh, wow. He's like, we'll look into it. So I don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I actually wrote a message to the seller. I was like, dude, come on. I took a picture of the box on my scale. There was 8.3 pounds. with the first class. I'm like, that is grossly abusing the system.
So here's the deal. That guy is like, why does this person care? I gave them free shipping. Why do they care how I sent it to them? As long as they got it, on time. And it's really just about the principle. And because we like the post office, and because as a sellers, that's just
you depend on the post office.
It's pretty bad.
Look, if he had sent something,
you like the hall monitor.
If it was over by like an ounce or so, I'm like, all right, like whatever. But dude, 8 pounds, come on. And actually my helper was in the office when I realized this. I like put it on the scale and I was like, look, because now she knows postage. I'm like, look what the postage he paid for. And she's like, she's like, why didn't the post office catch that? I'm like, because they're handling probably like 100 boxes from this guy.
It's like I said, he's really smart because he doesn't ship from his home.
Right.
So that postmaster can't be like, okay, where is it coming from?
Right.
And then he can tell the post office carrier, check this guy's stuff. Because it gets mixed up with everybody else's. He's really smart.
No. So what I'm hoping is that post office is going to be more vigilant from stuff from that UPS store. I don't know. There's nothing I can do about it now.
Yeah.
My question was, this was my question.
You should put this much, time into it. I think it's done. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Just, don't buy from him again.
Yeah.
If you don't want to.
It's sad to me that there's so many sellers that do not do that. And then to have someone do that, you're like, dude, come on. All right.
It's ballsy.
I'm done with that.
Okay, so a couple of things on the forum that we were talking about this past week I thought were interesting, and I'll put links to these. It's threads. I'll put them in the text of the podcast. One was, Mike, who's a pretty techie guy. He was talking about he likes to use third-party software
for listing,
to a list on eBay. He's been using something called World Lister. Mm-hmm. Now he's going to switch over, I think, to 6-bit.
Yes, which is another software.
And I get it. He's very thorough. Explains why he enjoys it. Because I guess it does give you a lot more options and capabilities than just doing it through eBay. But I'm just like, if you're just listing one item at a time, why not just list through eBay? Like,
well, you said he gave a thorough, but
it still didn't. I guess some things are like, well, you can make templates and save templates. So if you're selling
a baseball hat,
a lamp, but you can just have a lamp template. So anytime,
but I just sell similar,
right?
I'm just like, I have a baseball hat, sell similar, change the color.
I guess the other thing is you can download all your items,
that is part of it.
And you can back up
which I want to be able to do. I wish why doesn't eBay just let you do that?
Yeah.
eBay.
I think the other thing too is that if you have people working for you, you can give them an account to access to your eBay store without giving them access to the important stuff, so they can just list. But with our helper, because she works here and we trust her, she
doesn't know our password either. Like, if I signed out, she'd be like, what do I do?
So anyway, I think it's interesting for us. We've looked into it and we haven't quite seen a reason to pay whatever it is, $30 a month or however much. The other thing is, a lot of them seem to be only based on a Windows. And we're a Mac family, so
it's tough. It's like,
I don't understand.
I use this great program and it's so awesome. It's for Windows only. I'm like, cool. I don't know what to do.
The other interesting conversation we had was someone was asking, how do you provide one day it's shipping if you have a full-time job?
Right.
So these are people, they work full-time and they sell on eBay and they want to be able to do a next day.
Yeah.
But how do you do that if you come home and you have to wake up at 6 to go to work?
Right.
And it was interesting. People that are in that quandary explained how they kind of schedule their time.
Yeah, that was fascinating. I'm like, man, I'm so glad this is all I do, because I just get up and ship and then I do whatever.
Yeah. But in reality, you only have to do next day or a 1 day handling if you want to be a top rated seller
with a discount.
with a discount.
You can be a top rated seller and have 2 day shipping. You just don't get the discount.
Only if
right?
you want the 20% discount
Right.
off your final value fees.
You just ship within your
You can be a
time.
top rated seller as long as you ship like 90%. It's within the stated handling time. So you can still say it's a 3 day handling time.
Right.
And you can be top rated as long as you're always doing it. It's within those 3 days. So I think people shouldn't beat themselves up about trying to ship so quickly,
Yeah, if you're not concerned, if you're doing this as a part-time job or as a hobby.
Especially if you aren't, again, as long as you aren't doing like commodity items where people are like, I need this now,
I want to make a complaint as a customer. It's a similar thing. I bought something again on eBay, and I looked for US only because it was a commodity item. I was like, US shipping only because I want it, next week or whatever. And the listing said it was located in New Jersey, but the handling time, like I bought it and it was like, we'll get to you by March. I was like, what? That's so crappy. So there are commodity sellers that are like, we're located in New Jersey, but we're shipping from Hong Kong. And you're like,
but
dude.
I mean, to be fair, that shipping time must have been apparent to you when you bought it, and you just
I must have overlooked it.
Yeah.
Because when I got that email, like, your item's been shipped, we'll get there by March 15th, I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just think how that feels when someone buys something from us.
When we're away.
Gone, like that's the same thing.
That's right. No, you're right.
But again, if it's not a commodity item, we find people are willing to wait because they're like, okay, this was a rare, weird item.
Right.
It's hard to find. I want this one. I'll wait. But
I'm like buying like watch batteries. Right. I'm like, I kind of need this like soon. Yeah.
Okay, our coming week.
What is our coming week?
Well, we're doing drywall at our renovation, so I'll be over there probably working on that. But if I'm not over there, I will be doing. I'm looking at a box right now of stuff that I can
just random stuff
of list, and I will list them completely.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that idea. I mean, I get you with the prices, like, because I do want to make sure that I price stuff high if I'm like, we could get more for that. But if it's just like hats and like,
yeah,
it should be fine.
Yeah.
What are we going to do with our helper? She has bags, like luggage.
Right. No,
artwork. Oh my God, artwork.
So we have, a couple big boxes of like,
the final
and then
artwork.
we have a lot of artwork still that we need her to do.
I completely forgot about.
I mean, the artwork is basically our last death pile.
It is.
And it's basically the major, like it's the foundation death pile of our home. Are these boxes of artwork?
They're just everywhere.
Yeah. Cool. So she'll do that. Okay, let's answer questions that people called in about.
And you can always call our voicemail number. It is 540-407-8486.
Hi, Dan Ryan. Good to talk to you again. I'm listening to your January 22 podcast. This is Tim, Uper14 on eBay. I always enjoy your podcast. I just listened to you guys talking about how important the tracking number is and how basically that will save you on PayPal and on eBay, and I agree. Every now and then you get just a really quirky experience. I had one last year. It's the only time this has happened, but my buyer contacted me, said she didn't receive the item, opened the case, item not received, and she opened it through eBay. And again, there was tracking on it. It was a priority. No, it was a media mail package, but it has tracking, and my tracking showed that it was actually delivered to the front desk. She lived in a big apartment building. And so we went back and forth with that. We actually called to the post office, and she insisted that it was never received. And the case ended up closing in my favor, of course, because the tracking number showed that it had arrived. About 4 weeks later, the package showed up in my mailbox. Somehow it had gotten to the desk and been, stamped in the UPS system as delivered, but it was either they couldn't find the name or something. So it somehow got back into the mail system and floated around for a long time and ended up back in my mailbox after weeks. And so I was able to contact the lady and send it to her, which made her quite happy, ultimately. But just a funny, quirky story. Tracking is good. It does save you. Sometimes weird things happen. Thanks for the podcast. Love listening to it. Talk to you later. Bye.
One time, I sold an army duffel to someone, and 7 months went by, and it came back to us.
Yep.
7 months.
And we never heard from the buyer.
They never said they never got it.
They actually ended their account. Like, we looked and their account had ended. And sometimes I think some situations are just where people buy things and then they have life situations.
And they move.
They get divorced, foreclosures, they go bankrupt, they move, they have crazy lives and that stuff.
Just never know, yeah. So
I remember my grandma, and I'm sure this happens with some older people, before she died, she was like living at home and sick, and she died, and then my dad went to go and figure out her estate.
Right.
She didn't really have one, but just her stuff.
Yeah.
And he said, for several weeks afterwards, there were, stuff coming from...
QVC.
QVC. She would just sit at home and just buy stuff on QVC and just, junk that was just
so much stuff
piling in,
Yep.
But in this case, that can happen. I mean, the good thing is, according to eBay, you've done the right thing. You shipped it, and it got sent to the person's apartment building.
Right.
Now, it's up to the person to arrange with their apartment building to make sure it gets to their house. And so hopefully you sent it back after talking to them.
I've noticed this a lot, and this is where it's most obvious when you ship to New York City. Someone will have you ship to their address, and most people in New York who are buying stuff on eBay have an apartment number. So this week, I sold a pair of shoes to someone, and it was such and such street, New York, New York. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's an apartment building. And they didn't have their apartment number, and they only had one feedback. And so I wrote to them, I'm like, you'll need an apartment number. It's going to get sent back to me. And they're like, oh, I forgot. Yes, it's apartment G. And you're like, it's they don't even know what their address is. So that might have been the situation where she just moved there and doesn't know her, apartment number and just thinks they know my name at the front desk, maybe. And, it's people don't, that's happened several times where college kids move to a dorm and they're just send it to this address. And you're like, no, you have to send it to the mailroom or, something like that. And it gets sent back and stuff like that. So yes, we've definitely had similar issues.
But real quick to end this, I remember eBay instituted requiring tracking.
Right.
What, maybe 3 years
it wasn't that long ago.
And I remember people were making such a big deal out of it.
But tracking
really,
saves you.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because I remember back in the old days, 2008, most things were just shipped and they didn't have tracking on them. Only Priority, I think, had tracking.
Yeah, it was
through the post office. It wasn't really instituted into eBay. So, I mean, we would just be shipping stuff out.
Hoping it got there.
And if someone complained, you had to take their word for it, And I always thought, wow, someone could really be just an evil person and just buy stuff on eBay.
Say, never got here.
Say, everything got lost. And just get everything for free because there's no... And so now the tracking, though, people can't do that.
The tracking is great for buyers and sellers because if you're returning something... And they're like, oh, we never got this. Well, here's my tracking number. I did return it to you. It said it got delivered. So it works both ways.
Hey, Jay and Rand, this is Tiffany. A few weeks ago, you said that anyone listening to the podcast would recommend them to have a business PayPal account, and I'm wondering what the advantages of that. I haven't done that yet. So I'd appreciate an explanation. Thanks. Bye-bye.
So I believe if you change to a business account, they give you a better rate on fees.
Right.
That's the only
It's reason. A small percentage down.
Yeah.
But if you're selling enough,
it's going to be worth it.
It's a good deal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm sure that's
Yeah.
the other thing you can do is if that's not enough information for you, you can call PayPal and be like, why should I switch to this? And they're going to tell you. Or I'm sure we can put a link on the blog that says what it is too.
Yeah, so I will put a link onto, there on PayPal's like why you need to have a business account. But another thing is, though, you can sell under a name, like a business name, instead of like a personal name. So if you have a business, and it's mainly, I think, built for people that have stores, like an actual store, like
a brick and mortar
Trader
store.
Joe's or something, But that would work for any of us that have eBay stores as well. So if you have like a doing business as business.
Oh, and if you want to have them send you the 1099 under your business EIN,
right,
which is what we do, instead of like your personal social security number, then I think that you can only do that through a business account.
Hi, Jay and Ryan. This is Beth, also known as Wallaby from Minnesota. I've learned a lot from you guys, and I appreciate the podcast and the community you've created. I'm glad to hear that Jay will now be listing. Just wanted to share what my husband and I do as we both list. He used to clean things for me, but now he has his own photo set up and a scale, and I list upstairs, he lists downstairs, both on our iPhone 6s. So we do all the steps individually, from cleaning, research, photos, description, and getting it listed and putting it into storage. Each of us does the whole lineup. I don't know if that's the most efficient, but that's how we stay out of each other's way. I started the store, so it took a little bit of have me let go of having him do it just a little differently than I do, but we're doing well and we're making money. Just a note about shipping after a big vacation. We went to Florida a couple of years ago and sold 31 items in 10 days, which is a lot for us. And then we came home and we were leaving the next day for a different trip, strangely enough. So I shipped 31 items alone, and it was tough. So now I have him help me after a vacation, whether it's crumpling up paper, go find me a box for this, bubble wrap this thing up, or fill it in with, the paper, tape this up, bring it to the car, that kind of thing. So even though one person is the main shipping nerd, the other person can help. I also do the bulk packing slips, and even though it only prints on half the paper, then I just save the other half for another time. So, they all print at once, and you probably do that. So, keep up the good work, and I'm anxious to hear how Jay likes listing. Thanks.
I'm also glad Jay will be
I think all the ladies out there that had eBay stores and have sucked their husbands or boyfriends in, they're like, yeah, get your man to do more,
You should do more. No, you look, I would much rather be packing and shipping and listing than helping hang drywall any day of the week.
Well, but, that's going to be very temporary. So, I think we've done, I don't know, I've slowly, over time, done more and more. I mean, if I learn how to pack, I can basically just run a parallel store. We could just...
It's like you have a store,
That's right.
I have a store.
That's right.
Luckily, I have an employee. You don't.
But we would never do that. But
No, we don't need to do that. But yeah, I'm excited. Yes, selling 31 things in 10 days is a lot for anybody. So I'm very impressed you shipped all that. I know what it's like. I mean, you probably just shipped all day and then, packed your bags for your next trip like that morning. So yeah, I appreciate that very much. All right, that's it for the podcast. You can check out the blog at scavengerlife.com for the links we discuss and to join the conversation on the forums. You can call or leave a question on the voicemail line. The phone number is 540-407-8486. We post an episode every Monday morning. On Wednesday, we post a What Sells video brought to you by Steven Schultz that shows you what he sold and how much he sold it for. It's very interesting, and you can post your own videos on the same thread on the forum. You can subscribe to us through iTunes or YouTube, so you always get the latest episode. You can listen to our other podcast about our vacation rental business, and that's at shampooandbooze.com. You can rent our vacation farmhouse. The link is on shampooandbooze.com. And that's it for the podcast. We are ending in 3, 2, 1.
Goodbye.